So the BuildABody app, you'll notice it gives you all of the requirements in here, but it does not show you how to build the blocks. So I'm going to kind of help you get started here. And for most of it, I might show you the first step, but it'll be a conversation between you and your partner to develop those steps to make the app work, okay? So after you've downloaded the app from right here and brought it up into App Inventor, camera here, you will notice this is what it will look like, all right? Depending on if you're looking at phone size or tablet size, it should look something like this, right? So the goal of this app is that the user should be able to drag the different body parts into the correct location. So I want you to just look at this first. There are 4 different types of parts, and there are also 4 different little black dots that those parts have to go onto. So if I were to click something, you can see it's highlighted over here. So this is called the digestive system, okay? The little thing that looks like a stomach, right? There's the digestive system, there's the urinary tract, there's the brain, and there's the respiratory system, okay? So these are the ones that are just called as they are, all right? The dots, if I were to click on this dot up here, you can see this is called brain placement. So obviously the brain would go in your head. So there's the brain, and then there's the brain placement dot where the brain has to go onto, okay? And then similarly, there's the respiratory system placement, which is like where the lungs go. There's the digestive system placement in the middle, and down towards the bottom, there's the urinary system placement as well. So remember that. We'll come back to that in a second. If you look back at the blocks, some stuff is in here for you, okay? But it looks kind of overwhelming at first. So what they've done is they've created a bunch of variables for each of those different items we just talked about. So if the goal is eventually with your app to drag the brain to the brain placement and have it understand, am I in the right spot? If I am, it's going to lock into place. If it's not dragged to the right dot placement, it's going to like go back to its original location. So we need to tell the app where these locations are on the screen right now, okay? So the way that what this is asking for are the X, Y positions of each of those things we just talked about. So for example, the brain placement is that little dot on its head, but it doesn't know where its X and Y is until we tell it. So if I go and click this brain placement dot, for instance, so I'm on the brain placement, what you're going to do is you're going to look at what these settings are. And if you want to change any of this stuff, if you need to like expand your screen and make it look different, just be aware that your X and Y might change depending on where it's originally at. But over here in this properties area is where you'll be looking at for those numbers. So for the brain placement, its X value over here is 129 and its Y value is 13. So if I'm going to go back here, I'm going to be filling in these numbers. So the brain placement is 129 and 13. Be very careful that you're actually looking at the one that you mean to do, right? So that was the brain placement, not the brain, right? The brain was the little, actual icon that will be moving around down here. So that one, if I click the brain, that one's X and Y is 219 and 286. So the brain, what did I say, 218 and 236 or something like that? Or 219 to 86. So make sure you get these numbers about right. So now I've got the brain location set and the brain placement. So the instructions tell us that I need to be able to drag, and that's a key word there, drag a body part to the correct location on the outline, and when I get the right spot, it should stay in that spot, okay? So basically if I click the brain into the right spot, it locks in. So if I'm going to be dragging anything, well, what I'm going to do is, let's not worry about these things over here yet. We'll talk more about these later, these like touchdown parts. Let's go to the brain over here. I'm dragging the brain, right? I'm not dragging the placement. The placement's the little dot. I don't want to move that. That's like the end goal. I'm dragging the brain. So if I look in here, I look through, collided with, I don't really want that. Dragged, that sounds about right. So I'm going to take this, and when I drag this brain, what should it do? Well, it should move somewhere. So if I go back in the brain and I go scroll down, well, hey, look, you're going to want to look through some of these options down here because you'll be using some of these here in a little bit. But you've got this thing here called Brain Move To. That sounds handy. So I'm going to drag that in there. And the brain should, remember how on that BuildABody game where you were able to drag your finger around and it drew like your current X and Y position? You'll notice that because you're not getting a lot of instructions here, or not like the steps, because it assumes that you've already done the move with finger with that BuildABody thing, right? So I want to use the X, and see how I'm kind of hovering over these options up here? I want my finger to move the brain to where my current X and Y values are. So I'm going to grab this little, if I hover over this, I get this option to get the current X value. And I hover over here and I can get the current Y. So now my brain is going to follow my finger, okay? So for this first step, just for this video, your goal is to fill in all of these XY numbers for all of the placements and the original like pictures, right? So the placements are the dots, the original brain or original different parts of the body are like what you're dragging. So you need to set up all the numbers and you need to set up the ability to drag them to your current X and Y. So you'll be basically duplicating this but switching it out for each thing. And just be careful that you're not being able to drag the placements, you're dragging the actual system, right? So that's it for the first step video. Get these set up and then we'll talk about how to get them to lock into place in a follow-up video.